those are my 10 things that I love about Vanguard. Please share yours in the comments. If you're a fellow content creator, feel free to make a video like this of your own too. I think it'd be fun to have this kind of discussion.
I agree. So let's do that.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, today we got a different video than I usually do on the channel, so no discussion or deck profile or a special insight in a specific card or strategy or combo. Today we're gonna take a laid-back approach, chill a bit, and just talk about the thing that we enjoy the most to talk about, and that is Vanguard itself. And mainly the 10 things that I personally love about this specific game, which this whole channel is dedicated about. And the story behind this video is that about 2 weeks ago, Cardfight made a similar video with the exact same premise, his 10 reasons or his 10 things that he loved about Vanguard. And then at the end of the video, he basically encouraged everybody to and other content creators to do the exact same thing. So that's what we're gonna do today. But in my video, I'm gonna do it a little bit different. Instead of just having 10 specific things on the list and talk about them, I'm gonna order them in the ways that I experience them. So the first thing on the list is the first thing that I experience, and the further we go down the road, the later I go into my Vanguard career. So it's somewhat a story time at the same time. And you will find that some of these points on the list will coincide or overlap with different fight and possibly your own. And that is because there are some main themes within Vanguard that speaks to everybody, and that is in some core the same aspect why a lot of you guys out there like this specific game. Because the first thing on this list, and the reason why my interest was piqued about this particular game, is of course the artwork of the cards. Cardfight Vanguard has a very interesting card design as well as the artwork of the units themselves. And that is mainly the reason why when I first saw these cards of this game, I was interested in the game itself. I had no understanding what the game was, or how it was played, or what about the anime and such a thing. But just by the design of the cards and the artwork itself, I was already intrigued. And that's to be expected. There is something different about Cardfight Vanguard cards than something like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, or Pokemon. A big difference between these cards, if you lay them beside each other, is that Vanguard, the artwork, is the main focus of these cards. And some people are just collecting these cards, not even to play the game, but just by the way that they look. And I see this a lot of the times when playing at locals or at certain places where nobody actually is playing Vanguard, and they walk by and they see the cards. Almost always the first thing they notice is the artwork and the design of the cards. And they always think it's very intriguing, it's very awesome, and they are surprised by the way the card looks. And that is one of my main things why I started to get interested in Vanguard, and that's also one of the 10 things that I love about this game. But getting my interest piqued isn't enough to get me hooked into the game. That's where we arrive at the second point what I love about this game, and that is the anime. But however, there is something I need to come clear about this point, and that's that I haven't really catched on the anime ever since the reboot. I watched the first 10, 15-ish episodes, but afterwards I dropped it as I wasn't really that invested in the new series. But I've seen some episodes and scenes from the new Shin arc, and that is reviving and reliving my interest in the anime itself. Because when I was intrigued about this game, my friends told me, go watch the anime and you will know how to play the game. And that to me was an unspeakable thing. Because the only card game that I played before Vanguard was Yu-Gi-Oh! And anybody that knows Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that the anime is nowhere near what the actual card game is. But once I was intrigued about the artwork of the cards and I was intrigued about the game, I wanted to learn more. I popped up the first couple of episodes of Season 1, and that just hooked me in. Just the way how that show was portraying the card game, where you actually learn how to play the game, where the players actually played the game with the actual skills themselves, and also that the first couple seasons was more of a slice of life anime style, where it was just them playing the card game with friends and then going to local tournaments, going to regionals, internationals, and all that kind of stuff. What made it very real and also got me the feeling like I can do that too. I can be that card fighter in the anime and play the game potentially on that level. But then when I actually start playing the game and start to learn more about this specific game itself, one of the major selling points to this game itself, and what I really love about Vanguard, is the clan themes and the clan identity. And that's basically everything that has to do with clans. By the definition of how these clans work, we have 24 different clans, and each and every single clan has its own mechanic. They function and play completely different to other clans, but also within the clans themselves, they have art themes and skill themes, which is really unique. And Bushiroad really knows how to develop and design this in a very good way that it holds true to that theme. You can have these mermaid combat unit in Aqua Force, and then you have actual smart animals within the Great Nature. But then also within specific clans, you can have sub-archetypes that also have their own unique theme. Mega Conley has just mutant giant insect, but also at the same time have a mega nice army version within the machining type. So it doesn't really matter if you like royal knights to edgy demon succubus, or maybe just giant robots that just scream justice like 20 times a second, or just like me that you have a peaked interest in steampunk. It doesn't really matter what your interest lies or what your personal taste is. Vanguard will most likely have something that tailored to your personal interest. And that is something unique, as a lot of other card games have a very one-dimensional art style, or have a very narrow focus of how it's gonna feel and look. In Vanguard, at least, there is some coherent consistency within a sub-archetype where the cards look and feel the same because they are fit in that specific theme. And that is something that's really awesome about Cardfight Vanguard. But now we get into a more technical aspect of the game, and that's with the following points that I really enjoy about Cardfight Vanguard. And that is also the thing that really set them apart from other card games. And one of those points is the guard mechanic. A lot of TCG games have a very linear gameplay, in the sense that you either are playing or you either are not playing. As card games tend to have, you have your turn with multiple phases, then you end your turn, and it's your opponent's turn, and then you wait till their turn is over, and then it's your turn. Some games incorporate different types of mechanics to at least allow the player to have some type of interaction during their opponent's turn. This can be with trap cards or hand traps within Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic the Gathering has this in the form of instances. Hearthstone does this with secrets. But the problem lies is with a lot of these cards or a lot of these mechanics is that cards tend to have a one-dimensional use or the one-dimensional focus to use them in your specific strategy, which tend to have bricks or have cards or have dead cards. But with this guard mechanic, Bushiroad fix both these issues at the same time, because now you can guard against your opponent's attack during their turn, and you want to use it in such an efficient way that you still have access to your strong attackers during your turn. But with that, it also means in Vanguard you don't actually have an actual dead card, because a card can either be used in an offensive use, or they can use it in a defensive way with the shield value by just guarding with it. And that is, in my opinion, a very elegant way to give all cards in Vanguard a use. And this means that in a unlimited format like Premium, we can still get usefulness out of very old cards, because in a very basic sense, they are useful in guarding and attacking just by the nature of themselves. And because of that, there is an inherent usefulness to them. And it makes tinkering and deck building a lot more interesting, as you can experiment with cards that would otherwise never see the light of day within other card games, where cards tend to have a single use for them, and that's about it. And from one mechanic to another mechanic, what I really like about Cardfight Vanguard, and that really stretch home what makes Cardfight Vanguard the card game, in my opinion, for me personally, where I like it as one of my favorite card games that I've played so far, is the trigger mechanic. This mechanic really brings home why I start playing Vanguard and what it made so interesting, because this trigger mechanic allows all type of decks to still compete when things look dire. And there are two very awesome things that comes from this mechanic. One of them is that budget decks or very low tier decks or underwhelming performing decks still have a chance to win. It doesn't really matter. If you're lucky with triggers, you can potentially pull out a win. And this is, in my opinion, an awesome addition to a card game, as it allows any type of player with any budget to still be able to play, or at least have a feeling that they can participate in a major tournament and don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of bucks for decks that they probably are only going to use for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 months tops. But another thing about this is, and this is the main selling point for me personally, is that you never know when the game is done. In Vanguard, unlike most other card games, it's not clear until a victor is declared who is actually gonna win. Because there's still the chance of a 6 damage heal, and potentially if they crit or something like that, a 6, 7 and an 8 damage heal, which keeps them in the running. And what that solves is scooping. I have been playing Vanguard for a couple of years now, but I cannot remember one single time my opponent actually scooped in a tournament because they had the feeling that they couldn't win. And that makes Vanguard a very enjoyable game to play, as well as spectate if you happen to do so during a live stream or during a match video on YouTube, as you never know who's gonna win. This isn't really something seen in other card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic, where it's very clear from the moment somebody puts a winning card on the board or they put their winning combo in play that, oh, that player now won. And you know exactly the moment they play that specific card when they are going to win. One other card game out there that does this in a similar vein, and it's Hearthstone, in the sense that they have a lot of RNG cards that can just randomly throw the game from one side of the match to the entire opposite. But they still have the inherent issue that once they put a specific unit or a combo or a field on the board, and you know that your opponent doesn't have an out because they can't use cards during your opponent's turn, it's very obvious that at some points you know who's going to win, and you can see people that are going to scoop, and that's seen in live streams on Twitch as well as on matches on YouTube themselves. But Vanguard is, because of the trigger system, a very unique game to it. And that's what I really enjoy about Vanguard itself. Another thing that I really love about Vanguard is the resource system that we have. The way how Counterblast and Soul works. The interesting about Soul is that it's a natural resources that builds up the more the game progresses. It's similar to how mana works in Hearthstone or in Magic, that it is going to build up the longer the game progresses, as you can keep rewriting and it will fill out the soul. It's not really something new, but it's always something interesting, and that I would like in a game, that you have a natural progression to it, and that's what we're already seeing in the writing system itself, but thanks to the soul mechanic behind it, it's an extra addition to it. But what's really interesting is the damage zone with the way how Counterblast works, because this is a resource that interacts with the fact how close you are to losing the game. Because naturally, you want to keep yourself at low damage as much as possible. But by doing so, you potentially limit yourself of using very potential potent skills. And this dynamic where you want to keep yourself at a certain damage so you can use Counterblast, but at the same time don't want to give yourself too much Counterblast if you cannot utilize it or it will threaten you to die. That interaction brings a very interesting dynamic to the player itself to decide if they want to take damage or not. And that's what I really like about Vanguard, that a lot of their core mechanics, from the damage zone to the trigger system to the guard system, is such a is such an interesting way that it gives option to the player, and it allows you to think twice about what you want to do, and it also allows the game to be unpredictable at times, which doesn't encourage things like scooping, which makes the games fun for both parties at the same time. And now that I fully enjoyed the game and I knew about all its tricks and mechanics, and I had many battles on my belt, the next thing that I learned and experienced was the Vanguard community itself. Personal experience with you guys, as well as within people from my locals and in my own country, is that the Vanguard community is a very welcome bunch, and there isn't really a lot of toxicity going around that you usually tend to hear about a lot of other communities, and that's what I really enjoy. And there are many aspects of this, from the small community within my own country, where literally when somebody's deck was stolen, the first thing that we did as a whole collective group is try to get enough money together to rebuy that entire deck together from singles, and then give that deck to the player so he can still participate in tournaments and enjoy the game. That in itself is something really amazing, as it really brings everybody together and it feels like we're one big family. And it's not only in that part, it's also on a more international level, that we have all these different groups where we can see people enjoying the game in different ways, from people from America to the Oceania, from Japan and Asia, the Philippines, the Indonesia, also people in Europe. And within those communities there are so many different aspects or different subcultures, as you can say, where meta is different, the playstyles are different, etiquettes are different, and that's really interesting to see. But besides that, we also have, of course, the YouTube community where I am currently now residing as. And I'm personally pretty new to this community. I've only been doing this. The channel is around for, I believe, 2 years, but I've been actively doing this for just over a year, so I'm still somewhat of a newbie in this sense. But I've honestly felt very welcomed by everybody, and the interaction that I have with other YouTubers and streamers and other content creators is really amazing, and it does feel like we're one big family and we're enjoying this game all together, but at the same time each in their own individual way, which is very awesome if you think about it. Another point that I really love about Vanguard, and this is somewhat an extension of the first point with the artwork, is the special cards that we get, these special rares. And I don't really see this often in other games like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! I do see this in Pokemon to some extent, where they have these special SPs, but the kinds that we get in Vanguard, especially lately that we get, and what we also seen from different countries, like I believe the Korean SPs, that they get their own unique SPs, they look gorgeous. These look amazing. I mean, the latest SPs that we got for the Astro Force, for the new Genesis pack, these cards look awesome, and with this whole full art pattern, also with this gold lay-ins. We have seen this in the past with different types of SPs or special rares, as with the Legion rares. These are what more on the basic signs, but with the whole gold inlay, they had a nice feeling to them, and it looked really awesome at the time. The same that we had with the SCRs, which then transitioned into SVRs, and we got more and more of these cards. Also the full art cards that we got with some triggers and the starters in Japan, where they are entirely borderless, looks pretty damn awesome, and it is basically an extension of the artwork, but at the same time, you don't really see this in all card games where they goes this out of the way to make these special parallel cards look that awesome. One of my favorites, which they sadly don't do at this point anymore, were the imaginary rarity cards, where they took an anime character and a card game character and fuse them together like they do in the anime when a specific unit is riding a specific character, like Aichi with Blaster Blade. And the ones that I really liked were these Blaster imaginary rares from the entire group, as that artwork with the gold inlay and everything, that looks so damn cool. And I hope they're gonna do this once again, maybe with Tri-3 coming back, and I mean, imaginary rare for Asha, Altmal, and Chronojet to some extent. I don't know how you're gonna do it with Chronojet and Chrono, but they can maybe figure something out. But overall, these special rarity cards are pretty damn awesome, and I hope they're gonna keep making these special cards even more special, as there are way more options and there are way more things that they can come up with as we keep seeing new type of rarities, new type of art design with each and every single set. And from Bushiroad being creative with their card design, the next point that I want to address, what I really like about Vanguard, and that has to do also with the community, is the creativity that we can find in this game, as well with players playing this game as well. And that has to do with the fact that you can build any type of deck with any type of strategy or how you want to play, and we have seen all kinds of crazy ways that people exploit certain ways and try to come up with a deck that actually functions to a certain degree. There are positive sides to the story, but also negative sides to the story. The negative part, for example, are the ones during the G era, where we had 7 Seas Grade 1 Rush or Ripple Grade 2 Rush, which wasn't inherently pretty cool to play against, but you have to give it to the players that come up with it. It was damn creative. But at the other side, we have these wacky builds where people are doing the craziest combos and try to come up with things to break the meta, or trying to incorporate something new. And sometimes these things are going to be super fast within the community, where it suddenly is already exposed and everybody knows about it. A good example of this are the Legion, the Cross in the end, that was instantly thought of, or the G-Guard for Great Nature, where they can have a pseudo-denial Griffin. These aren't really things that I think Bushiroad ideally designed for, but the player base in its entirety can come up with these ideas in a snap second. Another more recent thing is that there was a player in his own local tournament shop challenge where he topped 8 with a very unique deck. And that was a Magatsu Storm Valkyrian deck. And it sounds really crazy, and I will link his deck profile on top here. But he exploited Valkyrian with Magatsu Storm to make a very powerful combo accessible. And you have to think of these things. The same thing with Valkyrian that Gear Chronicle players, myself included, the first thing we saw at Cray Elemental Grade 5 is that thing is new Gear Chronicle support. I don't think Bushiroad designed the card to be Gear Chronicle support, but we as a community immediately thought of that. So that's what I really love about this game as well, that there are so many creative minds at work here that whenever new cards are revealed or are shown to us, it doesn't surprise me that somebody out there comes up with the craziest of things, and sometimes it actually works and it changed the way that the game is played from that point onward. And that's something that I really love about this game. But the final thing, the number 10, or in this case, actually the number 1 thing what I love about Vanguard and what keeps me hooked to this game, and I already expressed it in some other points in this video, and I expressed it in many other videos, is the unique game mechanics this game has. And I'm not necessarily are talking about the damage system. I'm not talking about the trigger mechanic. I'm not talking about the right mechanic, the call mechanic. What I'm talking about is different mechanics within decks and clans that we have. Think about the plant tokens, and within the plant tokens we have these normal plant tokens, the 10k plant tokens, the new Asha plant tokens, but we also have Evo Decoy tokens. We have the Blade Master token that is something unique in its own regards. But besides the tokens, we have this thing with the Astral plane for Valkyrian and Genesis, which is completely unique to it. But if we go a little bit back to something like the GR, we had all these keywords, and some of them keywords were unique playstyles or mechanics, like Timely, for example. That was completely unique and very interesting, and it was what hooked me to the clan itself, as it was such a fun and unique and interesting playstyle. But also things like equip gauges is something completely different. And then of course we have things like strides, G-guards, and then something like in the old era we had Legion, Limit Break, Ultimate Break, and the list goes on and on and on. There are so many interesting ways to play this game, and Bushiroad keeps adding new and newer stuff. I mean, we had gift markers about 2 years ago, and then gift marker type 2 last year, and now this year we're going to get these new order cards, which is completely new. It keeps going on, and this is what is basically the drug for me, for Vanguard, that I just want to get more and more and more, and Bushiroad is just giving a little bit more just to keep getting me entertained, or give me a reason to keep playing this game. And honestly, I don't mind, as I keep enjoying it how it is, and it really makes the game interesting enough for a long period of time, as you can just explore so many options. And this in itself ties back into the creative mind of the whole community, as there are so many different places to play the game, and you see a lot of people just enjoying the way how they are doing it. They enjoy trying to build decks and discover these new types of interactions, deck strategies, and builds. I mean, a good example, one of my first videos on the channels, or at least 2 of the first videos on the channel, were about this concept, where I came up with a double turn stride ZTB Chronojet build, which was an exploit of how Heritage functioned and how you could abuse it to some degree. But other than that, I also made a very interesting and intriguing video about how you could ultimate stride twice in one single game, and I explained how you could do that, but at the same time I also explained how I came up with that idea, and that whole story of coming up with such an idea, or having a thought pattern of, is this possible, and then trying to figure it out and actually starting to understand that it's possible, is something magical in its own right. And I really love that about Vanguard, that it allows us to do certain things in that degree. And that together with all the other things that makes the game awesome, from the artwork to the community, from the anime to the game mechanics, it is one of my favorite games to play to date. And I'm not talking about just card games themselves, even if I compare it with other games in general, as it's just a fun game, and it's enjoyable by a lot of you guys out there from all across the world, and it allows me to talk to you through camera, and you're probably sitting on the other side of the planet, and you're interested in whatever the hell I'm saying, which I honestly don't know why, but you guys enjoy it, so, and for that, I enjoy it as well. And I just love what we're doing here, and I hope you have the same experience with playing Vanguard and as well watching content by us creators. And not only me, there are countless other creators out there that probably feel the same way. And yeah, that's basically the 10 things that I love about Vanguard, and it was at the same time a somewhat of a story of how I progressed through the game itself. But with that, I now want to pass the torch on to you. Let me know in the comments down below your 10 things what you love about Vanguard and what makes it for you such a great game that you enjoy playing. And just like Different Fight said, if you're a content creator, I encourage you to do the same thing. Make a video about your 10 things that you love about the card game itself and basically share the love about the game we all enjoy playing, making content, and just talking and socializing about. But these were my 10. What is yours? Yes, Different Fight, I stole your line. But as always, guys, I was Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!